I'm Nicola Talent, and you're listening to Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs, and the sins of the underworld. We're Ireland's top podcast for 2025, and now we've got a new website. So if you want to learn more about crime and criminals, if you want stories, extras, and podcast subscriber specials, go to www.crimeworld.com. Pat, could have been any of us really on New Year's Eve. An innocent family get caught up in this feud that is being played out on social media. And innocent, totally innocent, nothing to do with anything. And they're burnt out of their home.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So this was an incident that happened shortly after midnight on New Year's Eve. It was a family enjoying New Year's Eve shortly after 12 o'clock as they were getting ready for bed. A petrol bomb was thrown at their front door and basically it exploded and flames engulfed the front of the house. Now, this would have been much worse, except one of the daughters in the house managed to get out and to alert some neighbours. And we spoke to some of those neighbours, some of them were first at the scene, and by the time they got out to this innocent family's house, they could see 5 members of the family inside the second floor window. Now, the flames had already gathered at the,
this
the bottom
got
of the
big
house.
Really quick.
This got big really quick.
Yeah.
And these people had no way out. So one of the neighbours, a young man called Emmanuel Bello, him and his neighbours, they grabbed stones and started firing them up at the second floor window to try and break the window, which they did manage to do. And then they were shouting up at this family to jump. Now, you can imagine how terrified you would be. We're talking about young teenagers as well here with flames coming up. But they did jump. Thankfully, they jumped and
had the door caught fire as soon as presumably wooden door or something catches fire when the petrol bomb hits it, or did it go through it?
Well, what it appears, and we can only base this on the pictures that we've seen, is that the flames ran up the outside of the building. Now, Emmanuel did say that he wanted to go in and his mother screamed at him not to because she could see the flames and obviously there was that danger. But thankfully, this family, 5 of them, did manage to jump out the second floor window and were caught by Emmanuel and the other neighbours. Now, one of the older girls wasn't fully caught and she did hit the ground. And also they sustained a lot of cuts from the glass of the broken window. Now, when they did make it out, they were really upset because their mother was still stuck inside in the house. And Emmanuel was trying to calm them down. He kept saying, look, we've called the fire brigade, they're coming, your mother's going to be all right. But you can imagine, the terror for, relatively young children and knowing your mother is still stuck inside in that house. But thankfully, the DFB got there, they managed to put it out and they managed to get this woman who's in her 40s out of the house and to safety.
I'm sure there's people much more expert on fires than either you or I are, but sometimes when, like if there's flames or whatever, air can actually make things worse. I'm sure there's going to be an investigation to exactly how this place caught fire. Yeah, well, in the way it did.
I suppose the thing is, if you're looking at the pictures, if you throw an accelerant on anything, and it is a petrol bomb that's believed to have caused this, and that explodes, it is going to catch alight.
We said at the beginning that this was a totally innocent family. This is part of a feud that's going on between 2 individuals and they're putting it all up on social media and videos. So they want the world to see it. They want people to know how tough they are.
Well, that's what's strongly suspected. That's the line of inquiry that we've been told is the main line of inquiry that Gardaí are pursuing. There is an individual who's living in that estate. He's a member of the travelling community and he has been involved in basically a feud that's played out in social media over the last 6 months. I think the first incident in this was last July. There was an incident where 2 cars pulled into the estate. A number of masked men, they jumped out. They were carrying implements. You couldn't really see what they were in the video of this attack. But they smashed in the windows of this man's house and they also smashed in the windows of an innocent neighbour's house. The innocent neighbour being the people who were actually caught up in this arson attack last week. And then you see that one of the assailants get back into the car and he reverses his car 3 times into the front of this man's house. Now, this was a coordinated attack, not just between the people who were involved in it, but there was also somebody standing waiting for the cars to arrive who videotaped them getting out of the car and, smashing the windows.
And did that fly around WhatsApp and everything then?
It was actually ended up on Facebook and went around at the time. Now, that's one of the incidents that's been looked at as being part of this. There was a second incident where this man, who we believe was the intended target of the arson on New Year's Eve, he put up another video on Facebook where he said that he called out to this rival, who apparently is based in the Ballymun area, basically for a straightener, because he'd heard that this man had been bad-mouthing him, putting around false allegations about him. So he said he went out there with his sons, but that too ended in violence. And he said that he was actually stabbed in the back, and stabbed to a degree that the knife actually came through his back into his chest, narrowly missing his heart. And he claims that he had to undergo emergency surgery because of that injury. And then in this video that he put up again on Facebook, he outlined his version of the background to this and claimed that basically he'd been doing bits and bobs in this particular area, and that this other individual had been doing bits and bobs there.
Bits and bobs being
whatever
a little bit of dealing,
piece of work,
selling stuff.
Maybe just something as innocent as
Trading,
just odd jobs,
Yeah.
But he claimed that this other individual had taken umbrage at that and then had started bad-mouthing him in the local community. So he claims that was the reason that he went out there in October. And then there was actually a third incident that's believed to relate to this feud that occurred on December 21st. So this would have been 10 days before the arson attack on New Year's Eve, where some people went out and they smashed up cars outside this man's house. But also he says that while his children were inside in the kitchen, inside the front window, that a petrol bomb was thrown and that it landed on the front window. And if that had gone up, that his children could have been killed, that his children and his family could have been victims of this.
It sounds like it's a total miracle. Nobody has been killed so far.
Yeah.
There's two things in that. That's the first one, that, it is a miracle. We say that all the time until it's no longer. And the second thing is that these feuds always start somewhere, usually with something that seems to us on the outside as something so stupid. And they escalate because nobody can back up. Nobody can back it down. There's no mediation at some point. What was learned in the Drogheda feud from a policing point of view was to get in there at the very beginning, literally before the petrol bombs come raining in, when there's a bit of graffiti even, something small term to try and mediate. But that requires what? I mean, you need...
The thing, I suppose, is you can't predict the way something like this will go. Like sometimes these things fizzle out. Sometimes people shake hands, and sometimes it's dealt with quietly amongst the people involved themselves. And we have seen that time and time again. And sometimes that's the most effective way of these things being resolved.
Just they will peter out, and people will see it's pointless.
That they shake hands, that somebody moves in and they mediate, and and the parties involved.
Who does that nowadays, though? Like, I mean, in the past and even in the Drogheda times, they were still looking at bringing priests in. I mean, does that happen nowadays?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's
in certain
still
communities.
That there's people people who are mutually respected by both sides involved in something like this. No, I suppose it is worth pointing out that in this particular series of events, that all the events that we're aware of have targeted one side of it. Or the violence seems to have targeted one side of it. So that's another element to this.
Absolutely.
But we are told that is the main line of inquiry, that the arson on New Year's Eve is being linked and being looked at as being connected to this feud. There's also, I suppose, the intended target on this. There has been speculation that he's actually related to one of the parties that was involved in the Drogheda feud. So that was something that we were told that was looked at, but is not being looked at as heavily as what we've been told is the main line. The
family that were essentially burnt, innocent family that were burnt out of that house. I mean, there's a huge amount of fire damage done there. We've no idea what caused that. Hundreds of thousands. They have to be rehoused.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or else they go into the homeless community or position.
Well, you'd hope in circumstances like this, where an innocent family, through no fault of their own, have been subjected to a trauma like this, you would hope they wouldn't
put back on a list or whatever.
Very quickly.
You certainly would. But the other thing, I suppose, is that there's been other things that have happened in the last couple of months, some of them when I've been up, but there have been a lot of focus on this sort of intimidation, the use of fire bombs, the use of arson attacks.
Yeah.
Like fire can have absolutely devastating effects if people survive it.
Yeah. Well, look,
let alone.
Yeah. And like, I mean, we've seen the devastation that can be caused by arson attacks over the last couple of months. I mean, we saw it down in Edenderry in early December with the tragic death of Tyke Farrell. I mean, a 4-year-old boy and his grandaunt, Mary Holt. They both lost their lives.
Was that a petrol bomb through a pipe bomb or a petrol bomb?
Again, I understand it was a petrol bomb.
Right.
That caused the damage to the house. The Gardaí actually released footage of that attack afterwards, and you can see somebody coming up and throwing this device at the house, and it seems from the video that it goes up very, very quickly.
And from the video, Pat, does it go through a window into the inside of the house, or does the fire start up the side of the property?
Well, I suppose the angle you're looking at it, you can just basically see that this person approaches the house and that they throw it. So the mechanics of what happened next,
afterwards, you don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But what we do know is that that arson attack that claimed 2 lives, again, it had its origins in something that happens every day in prisons around the country. The suspicion is there was an altercation involving a number of prisoners inside in the Midlands prison, and that a phone call was then made, and that phone call gave the order essentially for revenge to be taken on this inmate, and it was his family home that was set on fire in the arson attack. So, I mean, you're looking. I mean, I
didn't know that detail. So is the Garda investigation focusing on who gave the order and what sort of...
The Garda investigation has done both. A number of prisoners have been arrested by Garda investigating that incident. And also you had a number of people outside the prison who had their homes searched. And that investigation is very, very active.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, like... These arson attacks are becoming...
Is it a murder investigation or is it a criminal damage?
Oh, no, in that case, there's 2 people dead. Murders. So absolutely, that is 100% a double murder investigation. But like, I mean, these arson attacks are becoming so common now. And in late November, we had an incident out in Clondalkin where a young woman, Alexi Campion, answered the door of her house and had an accelerant sprayed on her and was set on fire. And she is still in hospital with absolutely devastating injuries and is still in there. And we do know that arson attacks have been used. I mean, they have been used commonly by gangs who are involved in drug dealing to inflict fear and terror in the community. I mean, we know that the Hennessy mob in Blanchardstown, that arson was a weapon of choice for them. It is such an effective way to intimidate your rivals, that you show that you're willing to set fire to a house in which innocent people belonging to that person are living. I mean, it is an incredibly
and there have been incidents of it, in the past that you can think of, but it seems like there's a spate of it, or is it a copycat thing, or?
It's hard to know when it comes to things like this. I mean, last year was the first year in I don't know how many years that we didn't have a gangland shooting in this country. But it seems to be that what has replaced the shootings is these arson attacks, and they are causing every bit as much damage and trauma in communities. I mean, you look at the fact that a 4-year-old boy is dead, because of one of these arson attacks, and it's difficult. Like, I mean, we've been covering crime for a very, very long time, and 4-year-old children should not, they should not, be.
They shouldn't be at the centre of anything like that.
Yeah.
Or they shouldn't be. I mean, you sort of, a lot of people who are operating in criminality have got morals despite what they do for a living as such. And absolutely, they wouldn't target or be stupid enough maybe to order an attack on a household where there might be a child. Yeah. But then you have this whole swathe of people who are operating at a totally different level of morality that do not care. Yeah. And in a way, even after something happens like that, they still don't care.
Yeah.
They don't have a moment of, oh, that wasn't meant, or, and of course the effects that'll have on a whole lot of people. The community as a whole, the wider family.
Yeah.
You know, the family of those people involved in it.
Yeah.
The next generations. It's just, it's never ending, the effects that it has.
Yeah. Off the top of my head, I can't remember who said it, but he said, you think we're bad. Well, you see what's coming after us. And I think now we are seeing.
That was Larry Dunn. Yeah, no, it's frightening. Okay, Pat, thanks a million.
Yeah.